Hello everybody and welcome to the Fortum Insights webinar. My name is Juha Ruokonen and I work with the communications and public affairs topics at Fortum. Today we are going to talk about the renewable hydrogen or the green hydrogen market and what's happening there. But before we jump to the agenda, a little bit housekeeping things. There will be a recording of this webinar, so you can share it with your colleagues if needed, or go back to check if something was unclear. And you will have an opportunity to ask questions in the chat window, and in the end there will be a feedback survey. But without further ado, Antti and Narimane, our experts today, welcome.
Thanks for having us here.
Yeah, you are the best experts on this field because you are hands-on working with the renewable hydrogen. And Narimane, you are our regulation and P2X strategy expert. Could you start explaining what is this name monster that we always see, RFNBO? What is it actually?
Yes, this famous RFNBO. It sounds like a secret code that spies would say in a dark alley, but it's really just the EU way of saying renewable fuels of non-biological origin. And EU really loves precision, so every word is relevant here. So renewable standing for fuels made from renewable electricity, fuels meaning that it's an energy carrier, non-biological really to specify that it is not biofuel, and origin because in this case origin defines the eligibility. And we have the RFNBO regulation which sets all the strict criteria to make sure that the hydrogen produced is truly renewable. And this strict criteria includes three main things. So we have the additionality criteria, meaning that renewable hydrogen is produced from new renewable assets that have not been subsidized. And then we have the temporal correlation criteria, meaning that the renewable hydrogen is produced in the same time as the electricity, the renewable electricity. And the third one is the geographical correlation. And this is just to make sure that the hydrogen production and the renewable electricity production are reasonably connected. And so those are strict criteria from the RFNBO regulation that we need to understand. And the purpose from it is to prevent greenwashing and to make sure that the renewable hydrogen produced is truly renewable and can qualify for this RFNBO label. And you know, when the regulation was made, now it's so complex that it feels like you're trying to assemble an IKEA furniture without really the manual for it. But even though it's complex, it's really necessary for a sustainable hydrogen economy.
Okay. I still struggle with the RFNBO. And now lately I have learned that it's renewable hydrogen and not green hydrogen. But don't worry, let's use both, meaning the same thing. But often when we talk about the green hydrogen or renewable hydrogen, we come to the PPAs. And Antti, you have been hands-on working with the PPAs related to the green hydrogen manufacturing. So could you briefly explain how the PPA comes to the picture?
So basically, in order to produce that renewable hydrogen, you have to purchase your electricity via PPA, meaning power purchase agreement. But yeah, they really need that for the origin of the electricity, obviously including both the power and the environmental attributes like GOs. And yeah, I mean without few exceptions, you really need that PPA for your power purchases, and in order to just prove that the hydrogen you are producing is renewable.
Yeah. What makes it different? So if I just purchased electricity from my power company for normal use cases, and then I would need to purchase a PPA for the renewable hydrogen manufacturing, what kind of additional sort of requirements it puts on the electricity supply?
Yeah, right. Like said, I mean the origin is very essential here. So you need to have the GOs and basically especially when you go beyond the 2029, you go to 2030s, so where you have to have the hourly matching of the origin of the electricity. Then you really have to have the production time series of the power plants that are producing the electricity.
With hourly matching, you mean that the manufacturing of the hydrogen and the electricity that is consumed for a specific hour, you have to sort of track it to the production of the electricity on that same equivalent hour.
Exactly, timely matching, yeah.
Yeah. How is it with the normal? If I have let's say, bicycle factory consuming power, what kind of matching do I do now?
You don't necessarily have to have anything unless you want to comply with the, or have the claims that you're using renewable electricity. But then of course it's better for your business if you're able to do that.
Yeah. And I think, is this also like when some data centers are showing that they are 24/7 green? So this is basically the same thing.
Exactly, that's what we call the voluntary compliance. So they don't have to comply, but they do that for some other reasons.
Is there some other requirement, like when we talk about the PPA side? So we have like that it has to be from the renewable sources, and then there is this timely matching. But is there something else? No subsidies.
Yes. So as Antti said, that you almost always need the PPA when the hydrogen side is connected to the grid. If it's connected directly or co-located with the renewable asset, then it's a different question. But we can do some role playing here. So you are the hydrogen developer or the producer, and you are the renewable electricity supplier.
Right.
And I will set down the rules for you then to both ensure RF&BO production. So there is one critical factor to take into account is this grid emission intensity, usually forgotten, but the EU has already set the threshold of when to consider the grid clean or dirty. And this emission is 18 grams of CO2 per megajoule. So if the value is below that, the grid is clean. So in that case, you would still need the PPA from the electricity producer, but it could be with renewable electricity assets that already exist, such as hydropower, an old asset, and then wind and solar. But if the grid is dirtier than that, so above the threshold, so you actually need a PPA with new renewable assets. In that case, no hydropower, but new wind, new solar that has not been subsidized by the Commission or the state. And if we go case by case, so your hydrogen producer, maybe in Finland or the southern pricing zones in Sweden, so in that case, the grid is clean enough, thankfully, so you actually could have a PPA with existing renewables.
Exactly.
Yeah. And if you're in a dirty grids, Poland and Germany, that you actually need the PPA with the new renewable assets that have not been subsidized. And then there is an ultimate region, which is Norway and the northern of Sweden. If you actually locate there, the regulation doesn't require you to have the PPA, but you could still have it for the hedging purposes. So that is the actual setup in this case. So maybe a few things to remember is that you as hydrogen producer almost always need the PPA unless you're in an ultra clean grid, which is the northeast pricing zone of Sweden and Norway. You always need the guarantees of origin. So as specified already by Antti. What else would you need? Let me check. Yes, there is another aspect. I think if you would decide to produce in Germany or Poland, there is a grandfathering rule that is in the RF&BO regulation, which means if you are an early mover, if you start the production before January 2028, then you have some flexibility that you don't need a PPA with a new renewable asset that has not been subsidized. You can benefit from the same flexibility we have here in Finland. So you could have a PPA with existing renewable asset, but only for a certain duration, 10 years. And after that, you have to go to the setup of new renewable asset. So this grandfathering rule is good for first movers. If you are a first mover producing before 2028, you can benefit from that, that is relevant in the dirty grids, not relevant for us in Finland and Sweden.
Do I understand correctly? For example, 2029 in Poland, if I would establish a renewable hydrogen factory, would I need to have a, like, let's say, wind power that is also commissioned in 2029, or what is sort of criteria for new?
Yes, so it comes under the strict rules of the additionality, which was mentioned, meaning that the hydrogen production need to bring along with it an additional renewable asset to the grid, so it doesn't piggyback on the existing renewable that could be used by the industries. So yes, you would need a new renewable asset that is also entering commercial operation in the same time, and also non-subsidized. That's usually forgotten, but it has to be built on market base.
And this timely correlation, and this also applies for the let's say in Poland.
Yes, so it applies uniformly all over Europe. So for hydrogen produced in Europe, as well as hydrogen imported to Europe. So actually, this criteria also applies to third countries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Antti, you have been hands-on making the PPA agreement for the Power2X or for the Power2X type of agreement for renewable hydrogen. How would you describe the agreement itself? Is it much harder to negotiate, or is there more details than if you just talk about pure PPA, plain power?
To put it that way, I mean, it's not that much harder. I mean, it's just a matter of agreeing about certain things. So basically, just to remember to include all the needed components, like especially the origin.
Yeah. So is the renewable hydrogen PPA, is it cheaper or more expensive than the regular PPA? Can you elaborate that?
I'd say that there's a difference, a timely difference until 2029. It's not that much more expensive, but as we go to the hourly matching period, there is a certain premium for that component. We all know that's a kind of a scarce resource. I mean, renewable power hourly matched.
Yeah. Yes, and I think the $1 million question or €1 million question nowadays, it's more appropriate to say, is that how flexible is actually the hydrogen production itself? Can they sort of run against the wind power production, or do they actually need higher sort of higher percentage of delivery hours than just the plain wind is able to provide?
Exactly.
Unfortunately, we don't have an answer to that yet.
No.
That yet. We have talked quite a lot about now the electricity side for the hydrogen, but now if I'm sort of a hydrogen producer and I have made agreement with Antti and now I'm up and running, what kind of other requirements I now have? How can I tell my sort of my client, my hydrogen off-taker, that this is actually green? Because the gas itself is sort of transparent and you are not able to sort of dye it. So.
Yeah, it's a great question, because producing RFNBO is one thing, but actually proving that it was produced according to the RFNBO regulation, it's a different thing, and there the certification comes to place. So first, as you said, you need to secure the PPA with renewable energy assets and have all the criteria that are mentioned there and the guarantees of origin. Then you need to do in-house a greenhouse gas calculation. So when you're using the renewable electricity for your electrolysis, that's not enough. The EU has already set the rules of how to calculate the carbon footprint of the hydrogen, and it needs to account for the entire production process. So you have the hydrogen treatment, maybe compression, liquefaction, and some transport. And all of these you need to account for it. And the RFNBO regulations set already the threshold and the limit. So you're limited to carbon footprint below 3.4 gram of CO2 per gram of hydrogen. It is actually very low. So you have to make sure that you have all your data collected and you accounted for all your processes to prove that you reach that value. And you do that in-house. Then comes the certification bodies. So at the moment, there is many official certification bodies on the voluntary market, such as ISCC. What they do is they check your documentation that you have extensively made. Then they do an audit to your site. So when you reach the commercial operation date, so they send the third-party auditor who comes and checks the site. and then gives you the official stamp. Here, your site is certified as RFNBO facility. So the certification is for your facility.
Yeah.
And it also says that whatever hydrogen you produce from this facility could be also certified as RFNBO with the proof of sustainability. Then you can tell your clients that, okay, I'm selling you this amount of hydrogen from my RFNBO facility. I also provide you with the proof of sustainability that this hydrogen is as well RFNBO. So certification is very critical, and it requires from you extensive documentation and involving external audits. And you have to account for that early on in your project setup.
Yeah. How long does the certification take? Is it like one audit or several audits, or does it take a half a year or even longer? Or
it depends how well you did your paperwork. Because if you have already done mass balance, you have the PPA, you know all the electricity consumed in your processes, you do the greenhouse gas calculation, that you already have enough documentation to set a management system within the company.
yeah.
So it does take resources, times, and of course money to do that. The audit is usually valid for 1 year, and then your facility gets re-audited every year, and that's also a cost you have to account for. So certification is not valid forever. You have to recertify your facility every year.
Okay. And how about the gas itself? Do you have some guarantee of origin equivalent system then for the gas itself?
Yes. So when you have the PPA including the renewable guarantees of origin from the energy supplier, then you could cancel that.
Yeah.
In Finland we have the system from Gasgrid, Energiavirasto, and then you can issue the renewable guarantees of origin for your hydrogen gas.
Yeah. And do you assume that we will go in that direction, that let's say the chemical factory that is using the renewable hydrogen, that they will sort of be purchasing renewable hydrogen GOs, or guarantee of origins, or is it just that I, as manufacturing, I just do the sort of cancellation of the GOs on behalf of my client, or is it going to be a GO market for the renewable hydrogen as well, like we have for the power?
I think it could be that there will be a geo market for hydrogen. But maybe I would let Antti has his opinion on this.
I don't have a clear opinion, but that's something I've heard about. I mean, that would be the way forward there.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So now I have the power through the PPA and Antti's excellent hydropower plants and wind power parks, and then I have certified my factory, and now I'm sort of going around asking that who would be keen on buying my renewable hydrogen. So what's the status of this market? Sort of, do we have like several buyers of renewable hydrogen or the green hydrogen out there, or is it rather still like a? Well, can you elaborate? What will I do with my hydrogen now?
That's the key question. Would you produce and release to the air, or would you want to make revenue?
Yeah.
But let's look at it this way, that hydrogen is the hidden workforce in the European industry. It was not talked much about before 2020, but the EU consumes at least 8 million tons of hydrogen per year. And guess what? It's 99% fossil. So it is fossil that needs to be decarbonized. And where this hydrogen is used, we have firstly the oil refineries. They use, according to statistics, at least 4 million tons per year to remove the sulfur from the oils. Then we have the fertilizers industry that uses around 2 million tons, according to statistics of hydrogen, which is then converted to ammonia, and that's needed for fertilizers industry. And then you have the rest of the chemical industry that uses hydrogen in a different products, so producing detergents, cleaning products, methanol, and plastic. So it is used heavily at the moment, but it is a fossil hydrogen. And then we have all these new emerging markets. So there is a transformation in the market. You must have heard of green steel.
Yes.
So green steel, all the companies would want to actually phase out coal and then use hydrogen instead of that in their processes. That's one emerging market. Then we have road transport. I think it's less spoken about, but there is hydrogen trucks that are being rolled out in the European market. And the EU has its own target. It has a target for over 1,000 refueling stations, hydrogen refueling station in the EU by 2030. Those are many refueling stations.
Yeah.
So
mainly for the trucks, or
mainly for hydrogen. Any users could use it, but really a hydrogen refueling station where you could go there and use hydrogen as a fuel. We have also the aviation sector. So it's still targets, but the EU has a target for the aviation sector. It's more than 35% of the fuels used by aviation has to be made from hydrogen by 2050. It's a large target, and it could be a form of hydrogen derivatives like e-kerosene, for example, or hydrogen itself used as fuel in fuel cells for small aircrafts.
So how does it actually work? I'm not the engineer enough for this. So if you have a hydrogen, that's gas. But you would have sort of gas planes, or how would it actually work?
There is companies like Airbus that are rolling out planes that can use fuel cell, taking the hydrogen directly. So it's not combusted, but
but this eSAF, the hydrogen made sustainable aviation fuel, that's liquid, sort of. That's sort of
So it's a derivative of hydrogen. So hydrogen goes then through synthesization processes to reach the stage. And I think the leading candidate is the e-kerosene, so synthetic kerosene. And there is one market as well, the maritime market. So also the EU has a target for it. It has a target of 2% of fuels used by the ships in EU already by 2034 to be from hydrogen. And that could be in a form of methanol, ammonia, or LNG. So methane made from hydrogen, which not only could serve for the ships, it could also be used by cars, heavy-duty trucks that at the moment use natural gas.
So did I track correctly, like let's say the EU has regulation for, let's say, blending obligation type of things, or both for the aviation and for the maritime, or for the shipping.
Yes.
But on the other sectors, the demand is still voluntary basis, or how does it go?
At the moment, the industry doesn't have a target on it on a member state, so the countries level. The EU already puts a very ambitious target in the RED III, so the Renewable Energy Directive, but it has to be transposed into national law already by May. Actually, this May, a couple of months coming, that the countries would need to have a target on their own industries.
Yeah, indeed. This is really complex, but did I? So there's the easiest thing is here that we have 8 million tons of hydrogen use in the EU right now, and 99% is done with the fossil fuel. So that would be obvious to make that as a renewable. Is that sort of taking place, or is this green hydrogen or the renewable hydrogen just coming with the new use cases on top of that, so that in future we might see that EU is consuming 10 million tons of hydrogen or 50 million tons?
So the dream in 2020 with European Hydrogen Strategy and afterwards with Repower EU was to transition from this fossil hydrogen to renewable hydrogen based in the existing markets, and of course the other new coming markets such as transport, maritime and aviation do have a targets, but it doesn't mean that the entire fuel used in these sectors then would be hydrogen based or renewable hydrogen based.
Yes, but do we have like member state level targets for the hydrogen use as well, or do you know how are they defined? Where do they originate? We have a question from the audience on this theme, so sort of where do they originate from, the targets?
I think the best candidate is where we are now in Finland. Finland has already transposed the road transport target in the Fuel Distribution Act, setting a target specific to hydrogen use in road transport. That all fuel distributors have to meet that target, otherwise they would pay hectic penalties. And other member states are also going towards such setup in fuel distribution obligations in the countries, where setting up specific targets for the hydrogen or accepting hydrogen as eligible in fulfilling a general target. And then there are other member states who are providing the subsidies for road transport to uptake the hydrogen, but without having really targets or penalties in place.
If Finland has already that in legislation, how about the other Nordic countries? Do you know the situation in there?
So Sweden, I think the country that I'm following doesn't have yet, didn't transpose yet a renewable hydrogen target on road transport. So it's not giving a clear signal to the market and to the investors. And we would hope that Sweden would also transpose the target, as well as the other member states.
Yes. And the aviation obligation is coming. There was also a year for that. Was it 2030 or?
I don't remember exactly.
Yeah.
But then the countries don't really need to transpose all that rules from the aviation.
Yes. Indeed. Good. We have covered the products, the origin for the foundations, the electricity, of course, from coming from the energy company. We can call that this. We enable the hydrogen production. Then we have the sort of the demand is sort of forming. But what is actually happening right now in this field? I know, looking on Antti's calendar, that you are meeting various project developers almost daily, and we can see that there's always a new announcement on a new hydrogen plant being sort of planned somewhere, and so plenty of initiatives in place, and a couple of what is the status? What's happening? What's cooking at the moment?
Yeah, first of all, I'm happy to say that all the green hydrogen or renewable hydrogen produced in Finland has been produced by Fortum's electricity. So that's from the deal that we made with P2X Solutions. But there's plenty of those projects and initiatives on the table. I mean, we're happy to discuss with all of them, and obviously, I mean, we have to carry our responsibility and act as an enabler on this field and use our renewable fleet as a source of that electricity which is needed.
Yeah, and we already said that member countries are really the member states are working hard in transposing the Renewable Energy Directive targets. Some countries are faster than others, some are slower, and that really doesn't give clear signal. The investors need clear rules and incentives that are in place. What else is happening is we are seeing hydrogen projects going from PowerPoints to reality. As Antti said, P2X Solutions in Harjavalta is one of the first projects that entered commercial operation date. We have Stegra, or previously known as H2 Green Steel, is progressing with their construction. So we are moving from papers to reality, even though slowly. And what's cooking as well is this low carbon hydrogen regulation.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
So it's coming. The Commission announced that it would be released. So the regulation will be released by the end of Q1 2025, so quite soon. And if you'd ask what is the difference between low carbon hydrogen and RFNBO, why low carbon hydrogen is easier to say than RFNBO. At the moment, low carbon hydrogen idea is hydrogen produced from the grid, that without renewable electricity use. But there could be multiple configurations of how to source your electricity for this low carbon hydrogen.
And when we talk about low carbon, we are also talking about nuclear based hydrogen production, sort of. Antti, how do you feel about that? So you are struggling to think about how we can sort of use all the hydro and the wind to make green hydrogen. But if you include nuclear in this picture, does it sort of change how the market looks like?
Yeah, I would say that I mean, eases things quite a bit. So basically, in order to deliver, let's say, baseload profiles, it's a lot easier from nuclear than from the intermittent renewables like wind and solar.
Yes. Yep. Do we have any guesses? Is old nuclear included in the low carbon hydrogen or not? Or do we have to be additional nuclear on this?
I think those questions were raised in DG Ener and in the Commission, so we have to wait then in a couple of months to see what would be the result.
Yes. There's also really good questions in the chat. So have you figured out the PPA side and the day-ahead market? So is it possible to make a PPA in a way that if the price is, for example, below 20 euros per megawatt hour on the spot market, that you would sort of then do the green hydrogen based on that power?
Sure. I mean, this possibility of just like undersizing the PPA in order to utilize those moments, or that there could be some kind of option inbuilt in the PPA, so that you can, you don't have to utilize the PPA on those hours, rather use the grid electricity.
Yes.
In that time.
And
So you would have a sort of option that every time the power is below 20, then you would get the delivery or something.
Exactly. Or 30. What is it? 0.36 times the EUA price.
Yeah.
And my understanding from RFNBO regulation that 20 euro per megawatt hour exempts you literally from the temporal correlation, but it doesn't mean that you don't need to prove to the certification body that you have renewable PPA that covers your electrolyzer.
Okay. Once again, I did not sort of catch this rule. So if the power price is below 20 euros per megawatt hour, then you don't have to get the
temporal correlation.
Temporal correlation. And the idea is that we wouldn't have sort of, let's say, negative hours in the power system because of this, or what's the idea? Where does the 20 euros come from?
Yes, it comes from the price of CO2, so that's how it's defined. And I think an energy producer like Antti is best suited to formulate the PPA for the consumer, for the P2X consumer, taking into account these flexibilities in the regulation. One of them is, yes, this 20 euro per megawatt hour.
Yeah.
And is it kind of the idea that when prices are lower, as low, that kind of needs that there is plenty of power available, and it doesn't then stress the system.
Yeah, that we would really use it in that.
Yeah.
There's plenty of questions coming in. We have really chosen a great topic for this discussion. So 1 sec before I choose the next one. So yes, we have also our own test site, Kalla. So it's is it 2 megawatts or 2 megawatts? So can we elaborate anything on that? So is it up in construction or what's the status on that?
So currently we are doing the earthworks for the construction, and yes, it's 2 megawatt, but 2 different technologies of electrolyzers, and the purpose is R&D and piloting for a couple of years.
Yes. Then, regarding the aviation industry, there's a question from the audience that do you see that the aviation would have an incentive to purchase eSAF before 2030, before the obligation kicks in? Have we seen any activity on this?
Yes, I haven't, at least not seen on public news. There has been offtake agreements done between a fuel distributor for airport and a producer on eSAF due to the price difference between eSAF and other alternatives, whether fossil or bio. But it should be coming because there is an EU target for it. Someone has to produce and offtake it.
Yeah. Good. One question also from the audience is that in the RFNBO regulation there's already some kind of a system how to revise this, and I have understood from some colleagues that they find that RFNBO regulation is really strict and not flexible, that it actually might sort of hinder how fast this market could develop. Do you see that that if there would be, or is the revision starting, and what areas of the regulation are the ones that the EU might be sort of having a second thoughts?
Yeah, really good question. So the RFNBO Delegated Act does have a review clause for 2028, but the recently published Clean Industrial Deal has a timeline for Commission to already launch a study to assess the impact of this delegated act on the market, which we could then maybe interpret that there could be a possible revision before 2027. And what we hear from the market in different hydrogen associations is that the additionality is a problem for locations with dirty grid, that you have to build new renewables, and that creates extra costs on the levelized cost of hydrogen. That's one aspect I think that the hydrogen players are trying to bypass and get more flexibilities on. Another aspect is the temporal hourly correlation, which is seen as an additional hurdle. But we have a very good competitive advantage in the Nordics that we are exempt from many of these hurdles.
Yeah. So, Antti, do we take the EU point of view and try to make an EU-wide market, or do we take the Nordic focus?
I mean, as a company, we're very focused on the Nordics and try to help them in the hydrogen production to grow in this area. That's for sure. Yeah.
Do you see? There's also a question from the audience that do we see it, or do you see that the current geopolitical situation would be jeopardizing the ambitious green hydrogen targets or the climate targets in general? Do you have any opinions or views on this?
Yeah, I think you can see it in a different angles. You can also see that our fossil hydrogen, this 8 million tons of hydrogen consumed annually, is from imported natural gas. So we have dependency on third countries that we don't have good relationship with. So in a way you could see that producing hydrogen locally from electricity in Europe, consuming it in Europe, is a form of resilience. As well as keeping up with the climate targets. But of course it has a price tag and a risk that needs to be shared between multiple players.
So it's also like security of supply.
Yeah, it is definitely, part of security of supply, yeah.
Being independent. Is it also like in particular for the fertilizers as well? So yeah.
And we need to eat, we need to grow crops.
Right.
So.
Indeed. If you would now have a crystal ball and you would have to predict that what will happen in the green renewable hydrogen field in next 12 months, what's your sort of, what are you seeing is happening?
Would you like to start?
I can start from my point of view. I mean, judging from the amount of the initiatives there are, I'd say that there will be few projects going at least to the FID. I mean, the financial investment, final investment decision phase, and I mean, like I said, I mean, from that point of view, it would be. I would expect few of those to realize.
Yes.
Yeah.
And signing of the PPAs at the same time, of course.
Obviously, yes. Right. Yeah.
Narimane, how about you?
Yes, I agree with Antti, and I think hydrogen will continue going from PowerPoints and talk to really reality, but for the market to really take off the way I think hydrogen producers and off-takers like it to be, we need to share risks. So hydrogen projects have completely different risk profile than energy production, wind and solar, or heating and cooling. And that high risk profile that is quite different and not very familiar between energy producers, that needs to be quite understood. And we already know that investors do not like uncertainty and cannot take the high risk profile. So for these hydrogen projects that are maybe distributed everywhere but not creating a market, in order to really have a market we need clear rules. So really clear rules, strong demand signals, so targets, obligation and penalties for use of hydrogen. And my last point is that all the players on the hydrogen value chain, from beginning to the end, they need to share risks as well as with the governments, so the Commission and the governments. So they all need to take on the risks and share it.
How about Antti? Like we have the pilot test case, the test site for the Power-to-X, and then we have signed a renewable hydrogen PPA as well. How do you see the role of the energy companies in this transition that is now taking place in the hydrogen side?
Yeah, I think I said it already earlier, but I see it a great responsibility on our side in order to just make this happen. And I would say that the area and Finland needs these investments. So basically, we just have to do whatever it takes from our side to help these realizing.
Yeah, sort of enable the projects to realize with our energy.
Exactly.
Indeed, we have a couple of minutes left and a couple of questions still here from the audience that I think we have time to take it. So, sort of really quick answers. Is it probable that the demand for hourly correlation after 29 will be sort of removed?
I think there is many voices that says yes, it should be removed. So it could go that way. But actually, the Commission had really good logic behind it. That logic will stand in time. So it could. The logic is there, but then for the market to take off, we need flexibility. So it could be that then it's either postponed and set for a further date until the hydrogen production costs lower down a bit. It's all, I don't know, predictions. I don't know exactly yet.
Yes. How about Antti? Do you see it?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree on that. I don't expect it to be removed on very, I mean, with a very good causes. Yeah.
Then also one specific question regarding I think this relates to the pricing of the hydrogen, so the end product. That do you think that we could have a pricing based on some kind of index? So sort of, it's a short question. So I'm thinking like, could it be sort of indexed to the power price or somehow to the other commodity prices?
Right.
That's, I think, like the holy grail of the future when hydrogen becomes commodity, and there are many projects that it could be indexed. But I could say on public records that the Hydrogen Bank for last year showed that all the applicants have had a fixed price for hydrogen. So a fixed price to the off-taker covering their production costs. So it's still the current setup, but it could be that then project developers progress to more exotic or dynamic pricing formulas in future.
Yes, indeed. Our time starts to be up. Any final words before we close for today, Antti?
So I would say that if you are thinking of investing in an electrolyzer, you need a PPA, please just talk to us, and we will try to find you the best possible solution.
Yes. Narimane, the regulation is clear, or is it?
I think it's maybe clear for the lawyers and the Commission, but for hydrogen developers and for the engineers, it still requires some practice.
Indeed.
But there is certification bodies, and I think we will learn how to apply it.
Yeah, like with all new markets, it takes time to form and make the best practices, and we are all in this together. So we need sort of all hands on deck, all the producer of electricity and the electrolyzer manufacturing, and then the companies doing the investments and banks providing the money, and then the off-takers, and so it's a totally new market sort of in making.
We need to remember that the regulation entered into force in summer 2023, so it's quite recent.
Yeah, it's quite recent. Hey, thank you everybody for joining us today. You will get the feedback survey coming on your screen, so please answer to that one. And of course, send us feedback also for the current interesting topics that you would like us to cover in the next coming episode of the Fortum Insights. So thank you, Antti. Thank you, Narimane.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
Thanks,
thank you everybody for joining us today.